Schaum Red Book, Piano Lesson 3. Starting on page 17, number 10, Bells Are Ringing. One really important thing in this piece is to make sure that when one hand has a repeated note while the other has a changing note, the one that is changing note should remain smooth. So I'll point out when that's happening. Now. And kind of now as well. Now. Now. And then quite a lot in the next line. Now. 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 So it might seem like I'm making quite a big deal out of that, but that's because it is a big deal to me, a really big deal. Because in my teaching experience, the students who get this thing right now will save themselves a lot of trouble later on. So as soon as you start trying to play this piece, try and work on this issue. And as I think I mentioned at the end of the first lesson with an earlier piece, a good way to approach it is to take off the left hand, in other words the repeating hand, really early to get you used to the concept. So for example, bar 2 into bar 3, left hand off and back on. Doesn't matter if both have got repeating notes or both are changing, just when one hand is repeating, the other hand is changing. And as I said in the earlier lesson, the reason for this is it'll just happen so often when you're playing piano that one hand will have the tune, which will often have to be smooth. It'll be a phrase, and it's very common for the accompanying hand, so the left hand, to have repeated notes. So you know, if you can't do it with this slower piece, you won't be able to do it in a faster piece where you've got something like something like that. Okay, I've probably gone on about that enough. So good luck with that piece. We'll move on to the next one. Steady Eddy. A lot of people are confused by this. What is the arm phrasing touch exactly? Well, it's something that helps you with more advanced music, so you're being introduced to it now. It's to do with the idea that moving your hand can make it easier for your fingers, because the hand is doing some of the work. So I'd see it as there being two main points here. The first is, to start with, the arm, sort of led by the elbow, acts as a kind of pivot. So to play the first note, the C, you sort of pivot your arm to bring your finger down, and you sort of do the same again with the next note. But then to take the second note off, you lift your elbow even more, so your hand actually comes off, or at least your finger comes off the piano. Off. Don't worry too much about what my arm is doing exactly. Just do these two things. Firstly, lift your elbow to play the note, or at least one of the notes, and then lift your elbow and arm to bring the note off, the last note off. And you want to do this exactly on the 4th beat. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. I shouldn't lift the elbow very much. Let me try again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So I'm going to play the whole piece now. Next one, number 12, the Goofy Gopher. This is quite similar really, only we've got downward phrases, but the same principle applies really. The left hand has just one bit. Maybe you should do that quite a few times to get used to the left hand pivoting and then off. And you should read the bit at the top of the page about bringing out the melody. That's important. The hand, normally the right hand with the melody, should be played louder than, more loudly than the left. And that's difficult to do actually. It's very difficult when you first try, but you should try it with the next couple of pieces if you think of it. So I'll try and bring out the melody in number 13, the Dandelion. You've got 4 quavers in a row, or 4 eighth notes in a row, as a pattern that comes up in this piece. You need to give it some shape to keep it steady, so maybe an accent on the first note, and then a slight one on the third one as well. So first, third, so really work the fingers, especially as you're starting with the little finger, the weaker finger. It's got to work hard. Remember about the pivot as well. Just a slight pivot can help give the accent. And then obviously you've got your extended hand position. So it's a stretch for the thumb to get to the B rather than the C. And then a stretch up to the A. And then we're going back to 5 on the G. Next piece, number 14, Captain Silver. You can have to work the left hand here. Oh, and we've got a repeated note in the right while the left hand is changing. So we're going to have to do what we did with a couple of earlier pieces, but the other way round. the right hand is going to have to come off early to get us used to keeping the left hand smooth or joined. So we got. I was exaggerating by taking the right hand off really high up and really early. So just get used to that. The left hand is joined, and then we can gradually reduce the gap in the right hand and go slightly faster. As it says at the top, don't forget the sight reading drills, which I mentioned at the start of my lesson, the start of my first lesson for this book. Okay, one more thing for this lesson. We've got the quiz on page 22. So I'll try and zip through that. Number one, this is a tie. False. The two notes are different. It's a phrase mark or slur. Number two, true. This one's the slur. 3. Slurs divide music into phrases. True. Number 4. In 3/4 time, the second count should be accented. Second count or second beat. No, it's the first beat that should be accented. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Number 5. MM stands for Melzel's metronome. I think that's true. Number 6. All nations have adopted Spanish as their musical language. No, it's Italian. 7. Legato means to play in a smooth, connected manner. True, that's correct. I've also described it as joined. 8. Forte, F means to play softly. False, F means to play loudly. 9. Giocoso means to play slowly and sadly. I think that's false. Giocoso is joyful, lively. I think it says in number 5 to get it exact. Yeah, joyfully, merrily. 10. F sharp and G flat are the same key on the piano. That is true. 11. A half step or semitone skips a key. False. It goes to the next or nearest key. 12. This is a sharp sign. False. That's a natural sign. 13. This is a flat sign. True. 14. The key of G has one sharp in the signature. True. 15. We can transpose by watching finger numbers. That's true, because to transpose is to play the same tune but in a different key or starting on a different note. So if we played starting on C, we use the same fingers. We could go from G I picked G because that was easy, because it was all white notes, just like with C, but it won't always work like that. Sometimes notes will become flat or sharp, or changing white to black, black to white. But yeah, the simple principle is true. Finger numbers can help us to transpose. Number 16, we should never review our old pieces. False. Schaum is encouraging you to go back to old pieces, and I would encourage you to do that as well, because firstly it becomes a sort of semi-sight reading when you haven't played the pieces for a long time, and another thing is, second point is that I forgot what I was going to say. Second point is you get a variety of hand positions. It stops you getting used to one hand position. It means you're reading the notes more, which is kind of like the sight reading point. I should get on with these really, shouldn't I? The rest of this quiz. 17. Beethoven was deaf in later life. I think that's true. 18. This sign means to grow softer. True. It's a diminuendo sign. 19. The sharps, flats, and naturals in a piece, excluding the key signature, are called accidentals. That is true. And 20. Rit, which stands for ritardando, means to grow louder. False. It means to slow down, and that's often at the end of the piece. Right, I hope you got most of those in the quiz, and hope you understand them now anyway. That's the end of the lesson.